2024.
Second.
Great. Roll call, please.
Alderwoman Spencer. Alderman Narayan.
Aye.
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard. Aye. Alderwoman Keys.
Aye.
Vice Chair Oldenburg.
Aye.
Alderwoman Saunier.
Aye.
Sheriff Velazquez.
Aye.
Alderwoman Spencer. We have 6 aye votes.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And seeing as how we have no board bills or resolutions for review, we will dive right into today's topic. As you know, this is, I think, the 4th installment of listening sessions that we for the Red Tape Committee. And since for members of the public and people watching at home, I will say for the folks here, please speak into the microphone so they can hear you. But today we're going to be focusing on special events. Before we go into public testimony, we are going to have a presentation from Director of Special Events, Travis Hauser. And then after that, the committee will ask questions, and then we'll open it up to public testimony. So with that, Mr. Hauser, you can come to the front and feel free to hold the mic if that's more comfortable, but please, since we've got folks online and obviously in person, we've got this presentation that will be helpful. And I don't believe I need to swear you in since you're a city employee, right?
I don't know.
I feel like it's gone back and forth. If you'd like to raise your right hand, do you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
And can you hear me clearly on this microphone?
Yes.
Cool.
And folks, the audience can hear him?
Great. So I'm Travis Hauser. I'm the Director of Special Events for the Office of Special Events. A little bit of background is I started in 2020 as the Director of Special Events. Prior to that, for the last 18, 19 years, I was an event producer around the country for clients like the Dalai Lama, Anheuser-Busch, ESPN, and then locally with a lot of nonprofit organizations. So I come with an event producer mindset, and now I'm running this office out of City Hall. The office, we are a 2-person office. It's myself, and the secretary, that's the office. The mission of the office, in short, is when organizers need to put on an event, depending on what all they have at their event, it can require 3, 4, 5, 6 different departments to sign off on that event. So if you have alcohol, then it's the excise division. If you're closing a street, then it's the street department. Depending on what all is there, that determines the number of departments that need to be engaged. That can get confusing and complicated to understand all departments' requirements and needs. And so our role is to work with organizers, understand what it is they're trying to do, and then we advise them on how we can get that done from a permitting and regulating standpoint. We then collect a number of applications from them. We notify all the necessary departments, and then we help those departments understand what the organizers are trying to do, and we help those organizers understand what it is they need to do with those individual departments. We then issue a special event permit that declares a festival zone that says you can have this event on this day in this location. And then it has all the conditions. If you have alcohol, you need to do X, Y, and Z. If you're closing the street, you need to do X, Y, and Z, so on and so forth. So that's kind of the mission, the process, and the purpose of our office is to be that liaison between all the city departments, all the event producers, and anybody who's impacted by those events. The office was established in 2019 or 2009, so it's not a new office, but it's not a really old office either. Some of the next slide, please. Some of the annual stats for the office is we permit between 350 and 400 events annually. And then we facilitate departmental reviews of maybe 13 to 1,500 events, or 1,500 departmental reviews. So again, there's 3 to 6 departments that have to review an event, and we facilitate that. So that's around 13 to 1,500 department reviews. Our peak season is March through September. Typically, we have 50 to 75 events in review at any given time during that period. We permit a lot of large-scale events. Mardi Gras is 100,000 people, St. Patrick's Day is 250,000 people, so on and so forth. I would say that those large-scale events actually make up a fairly small percentage of what we permit, and probably 75 to 80% of what we permit are smaller, not necessarily professional organizers, whether that be church groups or community groups. That's probably the bulk of what we permit. So event logistics are probably not their first line of profession, and I'd say 15 to 20% of what we do, event logistics are their first line of profession. So that's kind of the who we're working with. The things that we do and that we don't do as an organization, we advise organizers on all the city regulation options. So you can't really close this street, but you could close this street, so on and so forth. We're the liaison between the departments and the individual event organizers. We maintain a calendar specific to downtown because we don't want to permit a street festival on the same day that St. Patrick's Day happens downtown. We want to make sure that we're not kind of double permitting a space or a time. And downtown is where that demand is kind of the highest, or where that conflict could happen the most. We permit events that utilize public property. So a lot of times there are events that take place entirely on private property. That may be a parking lot or something like that. If it's entirely on private property, they don't go through the Office of Special Events. They still have the requirements to make sure their components are properly permitted, their alcohol, their food, whatever else, but they don't go through special events. If they do the event partially on private property, but then they want to close a street also, then they have to go through the special event permitting process. Some of the things we don't do, we do not plan or produce events. We're a small two-person office, so we are not an event production office. We are a permitting office and a regulating office. We don't provide really services, so sometimes people think that we provide trash services or barricades or security or a number of services that you would need at an event. We don't do that. We don't provide those. We don't permit events on private property, and we don't, in the Office of Special Events, have unilateral approval or denial. So our goal is to get all the necessary departments to approve an event and sign off on it. But if there isn't a department that has a concern or they don't feel this event would happen, we don't have the authority to just say, well, we think it should, and we move forward. So our role is really to make sure that all the city departments are on the same page. And if a department has an issue, then we don't move forward. Some of the current improvements since I've been in the office, since I started in 2020, really, last year was probably the first what I would call normal event season. Obviously, 2020 and 2021 were not totally normal event seasons. So my first 2 years, it was hard to see what a normal year cycle would be. And then 2022 was kind of everybody relearning processes. So 2023, I feel like, was the first kind of standard year. This is what it looks like to permit events for the season. So some of what we've focused on is what I call digestible communication. So a lot of the rules and regulations for the components at your event or how to get an event permitted, a lot of that language is not necessarily written in a way that the general public can easily consume it. So we've focused on really trying to distill the information to where we can quickly take 2 to 5 minutes with an organizer, give them an overview, explain things in basic terms. And we've seen that that really helps people be more successful in their application process because up front, they understand. We could certainly send them forms and ordinances and things like that. They kind of create more questions than they do answers. So we've really focused on that kind of brief and concise, digestible communication. Customer service has been a huge focus of ours, is to make sure that we're consistently providing quality customer service. We'll get back to you. We'll get back to you as soon as we can. And we try to make sure that we're always there. We're always helpful. We're always friendly. We may not agree with what you're trying to do, and we may not think you can get through the process with what you're trying to do, but we want to be a partner and provide quality customer service. And then efficiency. We've seen some efficiency in the timeline of turning around permits. Sometimes those still draw out and they take a long time before we can issue a permit, but we've certainly, through kind of encouraging applicants to get things in advance and to be able to tell them what we need in advance to get the approval in place, we've definitely been able to issue some permits faster than we used to. There's still a lot of room for improvement there, but we have seen some efficiencies. Next slide. These are just some basic testimonials. Hanini with the Hispanic Festival. Last year we had a good experience of getting a better understanding of the needs of the event. And then Big River Race Management, they're one of the main run organizers. They've noticed our efficiency in getting them permits. And then Soldiers Memorial had an event that they weren't really sure where to start or how to make it happen, but it was a very straightforward event from a permitting standpoint. And so through just a couple of conversations, we were able to get kind of straightened out and get that event permitted. Next slide. Some of the challenges that we see is outdated applications is probably one of the biggest challenges. We have PDF forms that are sometimes usable, sometimes not. There's a lot of questions that we need people to answer, and they're not actually able to answer them in the PDF. The PDF is kind of vague, and it's just not a current user experience that a lot of people are used to. They are kind of old-fashioned, dated PDFs. And that does cause a lot of issues because it allows people to submit an incomplete application. And then we have a lot of back and forth, and organizers get frustrated because they feel like they had a completed application. So the outdated applications are certainly a challenge. I spoke to this a little bit earlier, but it is difficult to understand what all of the requirements are. We could certainly say all of those requirements are on the website. You can find all those requirements. They're there, but they're hard to understand. They're hard to find. It's not clear and concise. Inconsistent messaging. It's not uncommon for an organizer to talk to another department, since there are so many departments involved in overarching permitting of an event. It's not uncommon for different departments to say different things, and they may be accurate to a very specific example, but not totally accurate to the overall process. And so that inconsistent messaging that people can run into when they're on their kind of city hall journey of permitting, it can cause concern and confusion. And I get a lot of, well, you told me this, but I was next door and they told me this. And that just kind of adds to the challenge of the process. It's a disjointed process. So in theory, the Office of Special Events, I believe the idea of it was a one-stop shop. I've done permitting in most major cities across the country, and some of them are very good in that they do have a one-stop shop Office of Special Events. Ours is you can't really do everything through our office, and it will never totally get there because we need all those departments to help us make sure that the components in that event are meeting their requirements. So those departments are the expert in their area, if that's the street or liquor or food. And so we need to rely on them to be the experts in that area. But it also means that you get started in my office and then you're going a whole bunch of different directions. And it's not necessarily all through a streamlined process. A big thing that I'm sure everybody has heard over and over is paying by check. So one, a lot of people don't have checks anymore. Two, most events are gonna have 2, 3, or 4 different permits that they need. Those are probably in different offices, probably in different buildings. I definitely have organizers that take a half day off of work just so they can go deliver their checks to all the necessary departments. And a half day is a lot of time to pay your permit fees. So that's definitely a challenge. And then we spend a lot of time tracking down checks, so that's paying by check is a huge delay and challenge. Next slide, please. So some of the planned improvements, I've actually been working closely with the mayor's office, and we've started an overall organization process. I think that's going to branch out to multiple departments, but we're kind of starting in my office. And the goal would be is that, one, we would improve the user experience. So those dated PDF applications, ideally those would go away, and you would go online like any other form now, and you'd be able to type in your information and answer the questions. That also means when you answer a question, right now, if you say, no, you're not going to have liquor, you still get all the information of what you have to do to have liquor. If you're not going to have liquor, you shouldn't have to digest all of that information about what it takes to have liquor. So it will be responsive, and if you say you're going to have these things, then that's what it's going to provide you information about. If you say you're not going to have these things, then you just move on. Management of expectations. With the current applications, it's very difficult to manage those expectations, whereas when we have a modernized process, it will be very clear. Yes, I'm going to have alcohol. Okay, that means down the road, you're going to have to do these 3 things. And then there will be kind of responsive notifications of, you checked the box on this item, you still owe us this. Right now, the only way for organizers really to know that is to call me or email me. And so ideally, this would be where they can go in and they can check the status of their applications, and they can understand where it's at. They can understand the questions or ways, what they have to do next. Centralized communication, that's similar to what I've been talking about, but right now, if a department has a question or a concern, they leave a comment inside of CityWorks, which is software that we process things in. I look at that question, I email that to the organizer emails that back to me, then I put that in CityWorks. There's no direct communication, and so through this modernization, we would have it where, if it's 10 o'clock at night and you're an event organizer and you want to see what's going on with your application, you could go in and see that so-and-so asked this question, and you can answer that at 10 o'clock. Instead of waiting until I'm here the next morning to call me, or so on and so forth. So centralizing that communication should really help. And then it will give us an opportunity to kind of standardize what we're doing. So right now, there's been updates and changed applications and all these things over the last 20 years or so. And different departments learned different things and communicate things in a different way. Whereas when we complete this modernization process, it'll give us an opportunity to train all of the departments from a standardized approach of these are where the applications are going to land. This is how you comment. This is how you request things. And on the same side, it'll allow us to train all the applicants that here's the new application and here's how you start it. So when somebody kind of deviates out of that process, we'll say, just as a reminder, we updated the process. Here's how you go through now. So I'm hoping that will really allow us to have kind of general standard processes, because we're kind of starting from scratch with this new project. That is really the presentation and the background of what it is we do, the challenges that we see, and kind of what's in the works to happen.
Great. Well, thank you, Mr. Hauser. I know that we appreciate your a presentation. I will speak for all my colleagues, but yes, I see Alder Lady shaking her head over here. Yes. So I'm just going to go through and see if any other members of the committee have questions. I've got some, but I'm last on this.
Of course.
So Alderman Narayan, questions? I think, I'm sorry.
No questions, just
I'm sorry.
I think I went out of order, but I'll go with you and then I'll ask Oldenburg. I apologize.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no questions. Just wanted to thank Travis for being here today and giving this presentation. I've worked with him repeatedly on special events at St. Patrick's Day, and his office has been great to work with, and looking forward to changing anything that we can to streamline the process even further.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderman Oldenburg?
Yes, thank you, Chairwoman. Just a couple of questions. Well, not really questions, but I think the questions really need to come from the event holders and those sponsors putting on events too. I know that there's been frustration, some of which has been laid out by Mr. Hauser, of just the various departments that have to be cataloged and collected, and if we can truly create a one-stop shop and what resources we need to put towards that Office of Special Events to do so, I think that's the work of this committee. So I'll sort of refrain from any specific questions until we can really hear from those folks who sponsor events. And Chairwoman, this might be a question for you. If there's sort of a feedback or portal catch that can collect all of that feedback, because I certainly want to go to some of the ones that I know of and make sure that they're providing input. So I didn't know what our thoughts were there.
Yeah, Alderman Oldenburg, I think we should probably reconnect and for sort of action steps. I've got, actually one of my questions is specifically about, which departments, and I've got some questions for Hauser, but I think you and I should probably just follow up and kind of figure out our next kind of where we want to go next from here with the departments.
Got you. Okay. I think that
Great.
makes
Thank
sense.
you.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Hauser.
You're welcome.
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard.
Thank you, Mr. Hauser, for not only everything you do, but this presentation was very helpful. I still learned some things today from your office. I know we're usually like the go-between, a liaison for our constituents that are throwing events and needed to work with your office, and sometimes letters of support and sometimes, different needs. So even knowing our role specifically in the special events process was aired out a little bit better for me in your presentation. I'm glad it was captured and it'll be able to be shared. Of course, I chuckled at the City Hall journey because we've heard about the City Hall journey to do anything down here. And I'm glad to hear about the modernization and the online access and everything. And I think the ongoing online access for sometimes people don't understand when you have an event that is permitted, it might have some meetings or some things that need to happen prior to the actual event that are encompassed and planned for as well. And so having that space where people can go see, okay, well, the event is this day, but they're practicing this day, or the event is this day and they're going to have a mock set up that day. Anything like that that we can assist. I want to make sure I offer us up for that as well. And I'm glad to hear about the user experiences, because not just the user, but I know that sometimes if it is aggravating and frustrating, God forbid if we lose an event like that, but if we don't, sometimes it's even reflected in how the event is carried out, if they're just so frustrated and burnt out to the time it gets to it. I know that for us, it's a choice to want to do stuff and hold these events here in the city. So we want to support you and your office and our constituents and people, again, that choose to have events here in the city of St. Louis as much as we can, because we love it, right? And the only other thing I'll add, only because now Forest Park is in it, and I've had to interact with your office for events in Forest Park more than I, since I just got that in the 10th Ward. In my other parks, I never really had to go through special events, and I didn't see it reflected in the presentation, unless I missed that part. But if you could just briefly go over for anybody that might be listening, what an event looks like, what their process looks like when they have to do it through special events, when they want to have something in the park.
So when you have something in the park, it is a little outside of the standard process. And the reason for that is, like, for example, if you were having something in the street, That will all come through my office, and we will then work directly with the street department. I certainly work closely with the Parks Department, but the way it kind of deviates from the standard process is that you have to start with the Parks Department. And you have to work with the Parks Department to make sure that the park is available and that they have the space and the time to host your event. And really, it's not until the Parks Department has said, yes, it's available, you need to get started on their paperwork, that they then have to come over to my office. And the reason for that is because people can get, and sometimes this is a point of confusion for sure, where somebody will get a park permit and that leads them to believe they're all set. But in reality, that park permit just says that you can use the park for your event. It doesn't say you can have alcohol. It will say you can have alcohol, but it does not mean it was reviewed by the excise division. It doesn't say you can have food, or I should say it doesn't mean it's reviewed by all those departments that have authority over those components. So stages, alcohol, liquor, tents, so on and so forth. So if you go and you get a park permit, and organizers often feel, I'm all set, I have a park permit, this has all been approved, their usage of the park has been approved, but none of the other departments have gone through that. So I tell organizers, as soon as the Parks Department says, yes, the date's available, get started on our paperwork, come back over to our office, and we'll let you know if you need to go through the full special event process, because then we make sure that all of those departments have signed off on it. And then that helps organizers not run into an issue where they think they're fully permitted with the Parks Department, city as a whole, and then it's a couple weeks out and another department, the building division or excise, will see an advertisement for that event and say, we didn't know there was going to be tents and alcohol and these other things. So that's where our office plays a role, as we make sure that those departments are aware. But it is unique because you start with the Parks Department before you can start on our process.
Okay, thank you so much. I did want to clear that up for some people that might have been watching too, because again, it's been new to me. I've been learning the process. So again, thank you for all you do. I didn't know it was only 2 people in your office. Lord.
And I would say 80% of the time I've been here, it's been one person. It's been mostly me.
Okay, well, you've been
just
doing
recently
an amazing job then, because we've been having some good times all over this city, because thanks to you and your 1-man, 2-man show. All right, well, again, anything that I can do to continue to support or help you in your efforts and in the work out of your office, please let me know.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alder Lady. Alderwoman Key.
Hi, Mr. Hauser. Great to put a face to a name. And I think I sent you some emails this morning already. So excited to hear more about the process of getting events off the ground with your office. I appreciate all of the work that you've done on past events that have taken place here in the 11th Ward and throughout our city. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Alderwoman Keys. Alderwoman Sanye. We see you.
You're muted. Okay, I've unmuted you. Can you speak now?
Yes. I don't have any questions. I would probably echo a lot of what was previously said, especially Alderwoman Clark Hubbard. I feel like, first of all, to know that your office is just a staff of 2 was one of the things that really blew my mind when I first came, like just thinking through how many special events that we have in the 7th Ward alone. So thinking about like managing that for the entire city. I do find that your office is extremely helpful, extremely responsive, especially because it's something like, I think as soon as I came, it was one of the first things that I had the most like requests for right away. And you guys are always really responsive. I think I would just echo, like I said, what Alderwoman Clark Hubbard would say about some of the things you also put in your presentation about different, just when people come feeling frustrated by the maybe the silos of the process and what can feel like disconnectivity between it, or do I go here or do I go there? A lot of times the way that I intervene is I just connect them with your office directly. But definitely looking forward to figuring out what we can do to kind of, streamline the process and make it as easy as possible to navigate, especially knowing how many of the special events we have in the St. Louis community and what a strong philanthropic community we have. And, the easier that we can make these processes to navigate, the easier we can make it to host different community events and things that we know our residents do enjoy. So just thank you for your work. Thank you for being here today. Thank you, Madam Chair, for creating this opportunity to have this conversation. And that's all.
Thank you, Alderwoman Sanier. I do want to echo my colleagues' thanks to you, Mr. Hauser. I know that I thought you were one-man show, I guess, up until today.
I am for the most part, but it goes, yeah.
And it's great that we have somebody with your experience in events, doing the administration, I think, because you know all the details of what somebody would need. So I think that just is especially helpful. And I'm grateful for the presentation you prepared for us. I've got a few questions, and then, of course, I want to kick it off for public comment. But briefly, just for my edification, you mentioned you keep a calendar of events of everything downtown. Is that a public calendar?
No, it's a Google Calendar. So the goal would be at some point, we have an easily managed and published calendar. But I can certainly share that with people. I share it, I think, like about quarterly to just a broad email list.
That would be great. And I think for everybody here, just having that event, that events calendar would be wonderful. I think this was before your time, and maybe it doesn't apply anymore, but does the department doesn't require aldermanic approval for block parties and street permits in some places, do they?
So all special event permits require a letter of support from the alderperson. Residential block party permits, those are a separate thing. My office doesn't really have anything to do with those. Those are directly with the street department. I don't think that residential block party permits require alder's support.
But a street permit does, if they're going to block off part of the street.
If it is a event that goes through the Office of Special Events, then it does require a letter of support.
Okay. Is that standard for most other cities? Is that just kind of they do here?
I've certainly had to do it in other cities. It's hit or miss. Sometimes there's like parameters of when it's required. So if an event has alcohol and more than 1,000 people, then it needs alder. So sometimes there's so yes and no.
Okay. I'd be curious to see, what those other parameters in other cities are. Hopefully we're responsive, as you are to us, we are responsive to you.
Yes.
A question about the modernization process, which is super exciting. Do you have a platform selected, and do you have a timeline?
So we have a digital partner selected. We're utilizing existing assets, which is CityWorks, is the name of the existing asset that I think most all departments do work inside of. So street permits are processed there, so on. That's really the main software that we use at the city for a permitting, licensing, and then also service requests. So if people have an issue with something in their neighborhood, we use CityWorks internally also. So CityWorks will stay in place. That's kind of the legacy software that we have as a city. And then there is a digital partner that has been hired that will be creating what we're calling a digital front door. So the applicants won't really know how CityWorks works. And for the most part, that's not really a client customer facing type of software. We've tried to use it for that. Other departments have tried to use it for that, and it's not ideal. So this digital partner will create a digital front door, which will basically mean that applicants have a much more modern, user-friendly entry point, and they will essentially apply through that digital front door. We'll build the application, and it'll be responsive. So when you say yes or no, it gives you only the information you need instead of all of the information available. And then that will plug into CityWorks, and then we will process internally CityWorks. And as far as a timeline is concerned, I believe it's this fall, which would be ideal because the fall and the winter is our slow time. So if we go live with a new application in the fall, it'll give us kind of the slow time to train people and get it live so we're ready for the spring of next year.
Well, that's really exciting. So it's right around the corner. Just another question on that. Would we be able to kind of see events by ward at all? Or maybe that's just a pipe
Yes,
dream?
that would be a goal. So reporting is the challenge. I mean, right now we do have pretty good ability to run a report based on the ward if the information was entered correctly. And that could be on the applicant side, it could be on our side where that error happened. But yes, the goal would be that we have better reporting with the new software. So if you said, you know, what events in your ward are currently under review, ideally we'll be able to run a report for that.
Perfect, great. And final question, echoing some of my colleagues, what feedback from us as alders or you've got members of the public, and obviously that we hope that this is a continuing conversation, what feedback would be helpful for you and your department?
I receive a lot of feedback, so I certainly have a good amount of that. I think what would be helpful is kind of where exactly are people running into their issues, or where do they feel that they're limited in their ability to get these permits or put this event on. That would be helpful.
Okay, great, thank you. And Alderwoman Boyd is joining us on this committee, so she's got her hand up, so I just want to pass the proverbial mic to her for a minute.
Thank you, Alderwoman. Thanks for coming to talk about this. And I'm sorry I couldn't even get on for a minute, but I'm trying to figure out, has this new process went into effect? Have you educated these people that have been putting on events for years? And then have you been educating them on whatever updates you have in regards to putting these events on?
No, so we just started this process. So we just had our first couple kickoff meetings with our internal teams, and then this digital partner that we're working with. So we're far, I mean, not super far, but we just started the process. So we have not informed applicants of any new processes because there are no new processes in place. We expect in the fall that the new processes will be in place, and we will then communicate with all applicants that we have on file that here's the new processes, here's how you navigate them. So we won't do that until we're further along in the process because it's right at the beginning now.
And I guess I'm kind of confused from that because I'm working with organizations and they are frustrated because they're saying that things they have done in the past, it's been the same thing, and then all of a sudden it changes. And so that's why I'm asking, because I caught the tail end and you said that you all are working on a new process, but I guess the frustration of the organizations are you're changing things in midstream on them. And so they kind of feel challenged because they're like, we're trying to do it ahead of time and we're trying to do it right, but they keep changing the grooves as they go. So that's their frustration. And so I'm hearing those frustrations in regards to that. So that's why I'm asking, are you looking to do a training with all the people that have had parades there? And so if it's from the St. Patrick's Day parade to the Pride Parade to the July the 4th parade to whatever parade, everybody is following the same process?
Yes, when we have a new process in place, we will certainly train anybody who has ever applied for an event. We will send them training materials and we will work with them as closely as we need to, or maybe just the training documents are enough. But when there are new processes in place, we will train people. In reality, those processes are not changing requirements, regulations, or rules. They are modernizing them so they are easier for people to use.
And so probably that what you need to project or communicate that to the people that are doing those parades that are in our downtown area, because that just discourages people. And some people just say, I don't want to deal with this anymore. But some people are literally creating their own guidelines from information you all are giving them. So whoever does their event the next year has that guideline that says, this is what we had to go through. And so I'm just asking you, please, please do not continuously keep nickel and diming and changing processes on people that have been trying to make sure that they do right by our city and make sure that they are represented well. But when you change things in midstream, it just really frustrates people. And I don't think we want the city to be looked at as we're not doing business professionally and we just keep changing as things go on. So I appreciate you coming, letting us know that you are looking to upgrade the system. But I just think communication is a big issue that we don't do well in our city with people that are coming in our city.
Understood.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I have no more questions.
You're welcome.
Great. Thank you, Alderwoman Boyd. And with that, Mr. Hauser, I think, do you have another question? Okay. I think that the committee doesn't have any other questions. Hopefully we'll have a chance to stick around and we're going to go and segue into public testimony now.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Well, thank you all in the audience for listening and those at home. So obviously we heard from Mr. Hauser and the Office of Special Events, but now we'd like to hear from you. So Madam Clerk, do we have, how many folks do we have signed up for testimony?
We have 3 people that signed up. We had a couple of people who came in late. So if anyone else would be interested in signing up, if you could come up. But the first person I have is Albert. I can't understand the last name. You're together? Okay, that's fine. And what's your name? Excuse me, ma'am. What's your name?
It's Hanini, Ms. Hilberg.
Okay. Okay, all right.
And Madam Clerk, another quick question. Do we have folks online too?
No one raised their hand online.
Okay. So everybody who's here to testify, if you just want to raise your right hand, I'll wait just a second while she's signing in, so that way we can swear in everybody all at once and we don't have to. All right, if you were planning on testifying and you are here, can you just raise your right hand? Can you raise your right hand, Ms. Hilberg?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Got to swear everybody in. Do you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Great. So you won't have to do that when you come up here. All right. So I know you, but Ms. Hilberg, if you could just say, you could speak into the microphone and you can grab it if it's, you can take it off the stand or you can adjust it, whichever is most comfortable for you.
Yeah. My name is Hanini Hilbert. I am with the Hispanic Festival. We've been in existence a little over 30 years, and we've been doing, we started actually the festival here in the city of San Luis. And during these 30 years, I did have a few problems, especially with the liquor licenses. I felt at that time, okay, first we had a young lady from Mexico doing that, and she always came back and she felt like she was not welcome in that office, and she felt it was due to her heritage, accent. So I took over, which didn't make any better. Look at me, here I am, Hispanic, short, accent, So when I walked in there, I told them I was taking over, and I noticed that reception I received was very cold. And it seemed like every time I went to do it, it was always problems. And and one time they wouldn't even give me the license, no matter what. I had all papers that they wouldn't give me the license because I understand later on they wanted to give the license for this special event that was held in downtown to a radio station, which is, I don't have no problem, just let me know. So at that time, the director of that section, he was yelling at me, screaming at me, and whatever. So I filed a complaint, and I'm bringing this because I filed a complaint based on discrimination. It was in my national origin, my color, my age, and my language with your office. And how many years went by, I never did hear about it. So then I think those are the things that needs to be looked into it, because what I did, I stepped down to do the liquor license. So we said, okay, we're gonna fix you. So we asked a American man to take over because I felt strongly that it was due to my race. It was nothing else than that. The office was, all African Americans, which I don't have no problem. However, let's get together. Let's, we need to work together. That's the way it was. And I think if you felt discriminated, and I filed a complaint, and I had a receipt about it, I felt at least I should have been acknowledged that they had to look at. So I don't know how many people went through that. Well, that's with the liquor license. So I didn't come back again that office, and I hope I never had to come back. And now with the health department, we really had no problem with the health department. Anytime we come to do, it's no problem. We receive, except when we want to do the Cardinal Games. We felt, hey, we need to show our culture. We need to show the difference on food. And I came to get licenses, and I explained what we were going to do. We were going to have 3 or 4 different stands. And I was told I had to buy the event. Well, okay, I was willing to do it. Okay, it was no problem. But I was told I could only buy maximum for the whole year 7 of them. Well, think about it. I had to buy 2 for the solar. So I was only going to buy 5 then. And I explained, I said, looking at these farmers markets, they have from May to September, October, and they pay only $200 for everyone, and they receive for the whole season. And then they suggested maybe to become a sponsor. I said, fine, whatever a sponsor requires. Well, I was not qualified for that because something and something. Okay, so I'm asking that what I was told, it has to go to the alderman meeting and be voted in the change for not-for-profits also to get the same benefit the farmers market. So we ended up giving up that event due that it was just a hassle. Every time you want to buy, it's $25. When other people, and this, it's not-for-profit. As you all know, whatever we make, whatever revenues are made goes back to the community. The Hispanic Festival, that's 9 scholarships a year to college students. And then in the Free Kings Day, which is in January, we adopt over 200 children where we provide coats, clothing, food, everything free. And this year we had 350. You were there. So then we felt very strong that something needs to be done, that we can get the same opportunity. Well, the whole cake had a frosting that day. The inspector came, and he was happy. He said, okay, but I have a little problem. He said, and I can't change that either. You have to probably asked to the change. Because we were trying to sell empanadas and tamales, he mentioned that they will have to be done the empanadas. I will have to take all the ingredients with me, take an oven to bake the empanadas, and he will have to be present when we're doing the empanadas. Well, I told him, there's no way we can do that. You know, empanadas, the stuffing is done a day before. That's just one of the things. And then the dough is done the day of you're going to be frying or baking the empanadas. Then we were going to sell tamales, and he told me exactly the same thing. You bring me all the ingredients, you make it in front of me, and see if, it's okay, and then you're going to cook here.
Excuse
way.
me, that's your time.
Need to be changes. It tends to be changes because other people can go and, like when we have a festival, I don't require them to cook in the park. I require them, they do in a special kitchen, and they all have certificates where they're going to do it. So that's another change that we're asking for, and he was just following instructions. Those are my complaints.
Thank you, Ms. Hilberg. I just want to clarify before I pass it on to the committee for questions. One of the things that you talked about, I think, was the number of event that you have to buy a permit for each event. And I know that we've had some correspondence before, but that A, it's expensive for nonprofits. B, it sounds like that there weren't even enough permits to buy, right? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah.
Okay.
I bought 5 permits altogether. And that's when I was told, we can only sell you 7 permits for the whole year. Cardinals Games had more than 7. I have a solar park festival. So I said, no, then I can buy over 5.
You can only buy up to 7 special events
For the whole year.
for the whole year.
Yeah, so I explained to them, I said, I need to save 2 for the solar park. How am I going to do a solar park then, Yeah.
And then the other thing that you talked about, and we've heard some, and I know you were at the hearing last week too, but it's difficult to, if you're having an event in a truck, it's difficult to make all the food on site, which is what they're asking.
Correct. Face it, just to make the tamales, I had to bring these big pots, it's no way. Okay. And then the spaces that Cardinals provide are very small. It's not even feasible to cook there.
Great. Well, thank you. I just want some clarifying questions, and I'm going to ask the committee if they have questions. Oh,
I just think we should make one more clear. First of all, I'm sorry for that experience, but I want to make sure also for people that are watching that we clear in the clarity that which department that is. That's not the special events.
and that's the health department with the food permits,
Yeah, it was the health department with the food.
and
permit.
then the special event permits is that the up to 7? Is that a special event?
Oh, that's what I wanted to make sure we was.
Okay, that's
That was
a
with the Cardinals, special event. I had to
that's a,
the Cardinals, all paperwork with the Cardinals, it was no problem. Until I went to the health department and I explained them that we want to buy so many health permits. Okay, and I asked them if I can do similar what the farmers market do. Okay, that from May to September is $200 for every Saturday. And that's when they looked at, and then, I spoke with several people there, and they told me, no, I couldn't do it because it had to come to the alderman meeting and has to be voted. As well, I can't call and say, have a meeting, no way. I had to probably be in a schedule or whatever. And they told me, we can sell you by the event. So I did. When I got to the 5th permit, they told me, we only are able to sell you 7 permits for the year. And that is when I had to think right away. And I said, wait a minute, how about the solar festival? I can't do it. So that's why at the 5th permit, I said, okay, then I tell you what, I'm not going to buy any more. If somebody else wants to take over, fine. That's why I stopped it. And then it's when the inspector came, and when he told me, no, he said, I require, he said, that you bring all the ingredients and prepare here. And that's when I said, forget it, I'm not doing it.
Thank you, and thank you for the clarification. So the 7 permits the health department has a cap on how many special events you can sell food at, and that is 7 per year, 7 per calendar year.
But our all 7.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I learned something every day at these committees. Thank you. Don't leave yet. I'm going to ask the other members of this committee if they have questions, starting with Vice Chair Oldenburg.
No questions. Thank you, Chairwoman.
Thank you. Alderman Narayan.
No questions. Thank you.
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard.
No, but Alderwoman Spencer has made it in. She had been trying to get in, so I think.
Alderwoman Spencer.
Mm-hmm.
I just saw her text.
She should be on the Zoom.
Alderwoman Spencer, are you online? All right, I'm going to go through all the other members of the committee and then come back to you, Alderwoman Spencer. Alderwoman Clark Hubbard, any questions?
No additional questions. Thank you.
And thank you for the additional clarifying questions. I appreciate that. Alderwoman Keys? Alderwoman Sunier?
I don't have any questions. I just really wanted to thank you for coming to share your story with us and share your experiences. I really appreciate you coming out today. And I think your testimony and us understanding the experiences of navigating the system are going to be really important for us to have as we consider what steps we should be taking to streamline the process. So I'm really sorry for what you had to experience, but I really appreciate you taking the time to come share your story with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alderwoman Sunier. And it looks like Alderwoman Spencer is still trying to get, she's not quite a presenter, but she says she has no questions. Alderwoman Boyd, since you are our guest Alderwoman today, any questions for Ms. Hilberg?
No, Ms. Hilbert, thank you so much for coming, but I apologize for what you had to go through. And so as a city, I think that's something we really need to focus on to ensure that we have great customer service. And even though it is obstacles that would hinder you, we still should be cordial to help you to go through that pathway. So I apologize for what you went through. And I hope this committee can make it where it's better for you in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alderwoman Boyd. Ms. Hilberg, I just have a couple quick follow-up questions. At the beginning, you mentioned that you filed a discrimination complaint. Did you which agency did you file that with?
With the City of San Luis.
With CREA? The Civil Rights Enforcement
Civil
Agency?
Rights Office.
Okay, and you still haven't heard, and when was that?
Oh, that was a few years ago. Yeah.
And you still haven't heard a response ever?
No, heavens no. By now, probably never will.
Great. I don't have any other questions at this time. I think it was really good. I know that we've gone back and forth about the health permits, but I didn't realize until this moment that there's a cap for 7, which would make it hard because there are definitely more than 7 baseball games or really any sports games. So I appreciate it. And hopefully I want to echo my colleagues that we can find a way to make it better. And I am sorry for the experience that you've gone through.
Oh, thank you.
And thank you for testifying today. Okay, I'll send her a note. If you want to go and call the next person.
Albert? Could you pronounce your last name?
Millheiser, Millheiser.
Okay.
See if I get this thing addressed. Okay, I've been.
If you could just,
charged with-
sir, before you start, if you could just, speak into the mic, because that's how the only people at home can hear you. And if you just want to say your first and last name.
Oh, sure.
And what organization you're with, and basically how you're connected to the
Okay.
city, if it's in a board, all that stuff.
Okay, my name's Albert Millheiser, and I'm, basically, my job is to procure picnic liquor licenses for the Hispanic Festival events. And I want to cover just a few problems I've had. I've been doing this for with our extra events we've had, probably 40 or 50 times, I've had to go to the license office and get the liquor license permit. And there've been some minor glitches along the way, but pretty well they've been ironed out. But recently, a problem I had was I went there and they, without notifying me or anything, they reversed the procedure. Before, it was always get the city license, take a copy of it along with the rest of the application to the state. Now they require that you get the state license first, okay? And then come to the city to get the city license. Without notification, it caused me an extra trip. I mean, no big deal, but still a different procedure, you know, and not being notified about it. And then there was an alternate problem with that. Part of this, of the documents, one of the documents is a 90-day no tax due that's required, you know. Okay, when I went there, we were getting towards the end of the cycle, and I had about 10 or 12 days left. The day I was there, it was still good. But to get the state license, I had to, that takes 10 or 12 days, okay? So when I went back then, they said, you got to get another 90 days no due thing for us. The thing plainly states that the 90 days no tax due doesn't have to be the day of the event. It has to be covered at the time of the application, okay? So, no, you know, and there again, but the trouble with the no tax due, it takes about a week to get it. So we were getting kind of pushed for time for our event. So I did it anyway, you know, so I thought that was kind of clunky, okay? That's why I know how to say that. And it probably won't happen again, but it's just weird that they changed that, you know? And by comparison, I can say there's a lot of redundancy in this now that the state's first, because they require, the state requires the same on several things. They require like my paid personal property tax receipt, my voter registration. Both entities require that, you know. But I don't see why now the state, in order to get their licenses, I'm getting it first, requires that. Why would the city need to have that other than, I mean, I can do it, it's just making a copy. But it does seem like it's kind of redundant, you know what I mean? What you could do is take a look at the state requirements, see that they've, okay, we got these duplicate things here. And, you know, the state wouldn't have given me a license if I didn't have those things, see? I mean, if you need it, you need it, but I just don't. I think it's kind of, it might save you some paperwork, okay? And like I said, I did almost get into trouble with that 90-day no tax due. Let's see. What else? I had something else here. Oh yeah, this is just out a question I've had through the years. Just I've went there and they require a picture ID of the liquor manager, that's my title, okay? Yet they won't accept a driver's license picture. I don't understand why. I have to actually go and get a picture, a good picture, like a passport picture, and it costs about $20. And, you know, it would seem to make sense to me that the driver's license picture with my identification, my signature, my date of birth, all that is on there. And why is just a picture? You know, that's always seemed kind of weird to me, you know, that I have to present a different picture. They wouldn't accept the driver's license. I admit the driver's license picture, we make a copy of it. It's a little grainy, but you can still tell who it is, you know. And there's all your identification on that driver's license, you know. And that just never made sense to me. So that's about it, other than the, like I said, I had some glitches through the years, little things we worked out. There's about 10 or 12 things. I've done this so often that I could probably recite them in my sleep. But and through the years, I pretty well, you know, ironed out and knew. But a lot of times they'll throw me a curve. Something will come up and I won't know what it is, you know, or something new. I mean, they can't, I guess they can't let me know in advance, but, you know, whatever. So that's about all I have.
Thank you, sir. I'm gonna, before I pass it off to my colleagues, I just want one clarifying question. The photo, the passport photo that the department that asked you for the passport photo, was that the license collector or was that excise? Which
All
department
it
was
is
that?
a photo. I don't get a passport or anything like that. It has to be a passport quality photo.
Right, but which department was that?
Is that what requires that?
Right, no, I'm asking which department required that?
Which department?
Uh-huh.
I go to Walgreens and get the picture.
No, right, but which department won't take your driver's license and asked you, which department is asking you for a clear photo?
Oh, that's the license,
That's the,
upstairs where I do
that's the license collectors, that's excise?
yeah,
Okay,
application.
that's just what we wanted to clarify, and that's
I
to
just thought
get,
that was strange, you know, what better than I mean, I've got a valid driver's license with my picture, my identification, and, you know, so, and, you know, to kind of summarize, you know, I understand your requirements are slightly different. You know, like you need permission from the Parks Department, the state doesn't require that. But it just seems like it's redundant that I have to, and you know, my voter registration and my no tax or paid personal property tax receipt. Why? You know, why do they need that? If the state, I would never have gotten the state license because they require that. All you have to do is look on their application and they'll show you. And they'll kick it out right now if I don't have those things. And the only comparison I have is I've done this many years with St. Louis County because we have an event in the county. It's not in the city, of course. And all I do with them is I get this, it's always been the way we're doing it now. I get the state license, I take it to the county, they look at it, see that it's valid and everything. I'm done in 10 or 15 minutes and they issue me a license. Where here I can guarantee I come in here, I better pack a lunch, okay, because it's going to be a while. So.
thank you, sir, we appreciate your testimony. I'm going to just ask and see if my colleagues have any questions for you.
Sure.
Alderman Oldenburg.
No, thank you. No questions.
Alderwoman Spencer, I know you're listening. I don't know if you have any questions, I guess just send me a message if you're there. Alderman Narayan?
No questions. Thank you.
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard?
I don't have any questions. I'm just going to thank you for not giving up because even without what you said, we've also heard the last thing you said, which really speaks volumes about how much easier it is just across the street.
I realize you have your rules and regulations and all that, but
Yeah.
I've often joked I'd rather go to the dentist than go up there and go
Yeah.
through that. Because it's
My
generally
God.
an hour, you know. I generally pack a lunch.
Yeah.
So, you know, we're in St. Louis County. I go in there, they got my state, my state license. I take the copy of my state liquor license and boom, I'm out of there, you know.
Yeah,
I mean,
well,
maybe they should be more, I don't know, you know.
yeah, thank you for coming in and sharing
Okay.
that testimony. Thank you for, again, not giving up on us. And that's what we're tasked to do. So I'm glad you came and took advantage of this space for us to not only air out these concerns, but
Yeah, my
help
only
us do
suggestion is
better.
you might look at the redundancy of those. It's no problem. I can take another copy of it, you know, and, you know, having all that other stuff, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. Alderwoman Keys, any questions?
She's no longer online.
All right, Alderwoman Senier.
Thank you. I don't have any questions, just same thing. Thank you for your persistence and sticking it through the process, and thank you for coming before us today.
Okay.
Thank you, Alderwoman. Alderwoman Boyd, have any questions? You're on mute.
Tell me that. I knew you were going to say that to me. Thank you. And I understand your frustration because I was invited to speak at somewhere in Maplewood and they were talking about how long it took to get a license for a business. And out there, they said it took them 30 days for the turnaround to do all the paperwork. So you're correct. The process is too cumbersome. And I'm glad we do have this committee because it's going to help us to see what we need to do to improve the system so you don't have to bring a lunch.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you, Alderwoman Boyd. Sir, I don't have any questions. I just want to echo my colleagues and thanking you for your persistence. I know that the city and the region is definitely better for the activities that the Hispanic Festival does in our city, and that you've kept going despite the frustrations, and hopefully you packed a good lunch.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We have Laura Valencia.
No, she's not. She's just with us. She just signed that paper inadvertently.
Okay.
Signed in with us, but she's not.
Okay.
Sarah Levin.
Hello, my name is Sarah Levin. First and foremost, I'm a 16-year resident of Fox Park, now in the 7th Ward, 711. And I've been associated with the Fox Park Neighborhood Association for a long time. They participate in the Mardi Gras nonprofit bar booth program that I've managed for the last 8 years, so I've had that experience, but now I'm in a new role. Since October, the Cherokee Street Community Improvement District created a second employee that is the Events and Special Projects Manager, which means that I inherited Cinco de Mayo and came into it new. It was my first experience being the festival manager, and I have to first say, one, thank you to the committee for all the work that you're going to do to help make things simpler and easier for this and all the bureaucracy that does happen. So I'm new to my role, and I have to say that Travis was invaluable, and I appreciate the opportunity to say it officially on the record at a public hearing. He did a great job walking us through it, helping us. Our vendor coordinator was new as well, and so he did a fantastic job explaining it. His office is an incredible hub for all the city departments, and so it's, I appreciate the process of the fact that we have regulations so that we have safe events and so that people can't just throw a 30, 40,000 person event and not provide them with porta potties or not be safe. But it would be great if the process was made easier and less confusing, of course. Everything that Travis said in his presentation is 100% accurate. He's very transparent about where his hands are tied and what has to be done. It would be beneficial if the special events office could be more of an advocate for the special events rather than that hub of communication to the other city departments. It feels challenging at times that their office is not in a position to repair a situation or act as an advocate. Like he said, that not to have unilateral decision-making, but to be able to work with like the fire department and the city fire permits. It's a super challenging process. It's confusing when you have an event that is close to 100 vendors, food vendors, liquor vendors. It is confusing to explain it to them. The materials need to be updated and modernized. When you are throwing a large event and you have out-of-town vendors, they have to come in town to get their license and pay for permits in advance. So we have vendors that travel from Chicago a week before the event to hand deliver their check. That seems kind of silly. The other is, I have to support them here. There is no Spanish translation offered. The fire department offers no assistance in Spanish translation. They say that they can't. And that's a big challenge when you're throwing the Cinco de Mayo festival. So I think that we do need to have more bilingual instructions, more assistance with translation here in City Hall on hand, and more understanding of when they go out into the community to talk about it, say at our vendor event, to allow for the translator to translate for those who are there and not just run through it. Everything is not on the website, and it is a very confusing process made more difficult when English is not your native language. And that's it. And everything else that was in Travis's excellent, very comprehensive presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Levin, and thank you for.
Sorry. I wanted to say one other thing. Sorry, I apologize. I also did want to say that I witnessed the city being very supportive. I'm sorry, I wanted not to interrupt you, but like our aldermen and other city services seem very supportive, like they want to have it happen, but the red tape is what kind of slows things down. So I felt supported, like people were on your side, but it still was challenging. That's all.
No, we appreciate your testimony, and I'm glad that you feel supported, that you felt supported, and I'm also grateful that I think we've said that we learn something every time we have this committee about something that doesn't work or something that we're surprised to have be there. So before I ask any questions, I do want to say thank you, and I do want to give the committee an opportunity to ask any questions. So with that, Alderman Narayan?
No questions. Thank you.
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard?
No questions, but thank you for coming down and sharing.
Who said that?
Alderwoman Sunier?
No questions.
Great. We still have Alderwoman Boyd here. Any questions?
No, ma'am, I have no questions. Thank you. Thank you for coming.
I don't have any questions either. I do think that I'm again grateful that you came to testify. I think you brought up some really good, maybe not good things, but important points. I didn't know about the vendors that they have to come in from out of state to deal with, to bring their checks by hand. So I do appreciate that. And I know that we've heard pieces about languages and needing to have more support. Can you just talk a little bit? Actually, I do have a question. Can you just talk a little about, and you mentioned the firefighters specifically, but why it would be good to have, I guess or you're talking about like the food inspectors or the mobile vending, how it would be helpful to have that in more languages than English, or is that what you're referring to?
Well, one of the things that I heard the day before, I received a call from the fire inspector saying that they were getting a lot of last-minute applications and people coming in not having their fire permit. So for propane, since it's a lot of food booths, that they were coming in and weren't filling out the permit, the propane. And we still need to have a follow-up meeting with them so I can better understand it. But they would come in and not have it done, and the fire department it's the fire marshals, not Fire Prevention Bureau in this building. They can't help them, or it takes a very long process for them to walk through the permit with them, and they want permits to be filled out in advance and well in advance, and I think by us, so the festival organizer, which that would be challenging. But
there's no translation available, and
No,
some of the folks you experienced at just so I'm clear, like some of the vendors were having difficulty completing the application because it wasn't either there wasn't an option in a different language, or there wasn't any support from the Fire Prevention Bureau in Spanish or any other languages.
And the requirements, we had to pay a translator to translate some things, but we didn't realize till it was too late that the requirements for the fire permit or the propane permit weren't available in Spanish.
That's, I mean, I know it's probably not helpful now, but I think that's a very specific thing that's good for us to see and know. So I have no other questions for you, but thank you for taking your afternoon out and also persevering through the permitting process to throw a great event.
Couldn't do it without Travis.
Thank you.
Our last speaker is Eva Franz.
Hello. My name is Eva France, and I do downtown events for Greater Inc. I just wanted to reiterate what a lot of people said and wanted to support Travis in the Office of Special Events. I work on events like City Social and the Greater St. Louis Marathon. This is my full-time job, and it's very difficult to get these events permitted. I can't imagine what it's like for people who don't have the support, a whole company behind them. And I know that a lot of these events simply would not happen if Travis wasn't in the mix. I point a lot of people who are doing events on their own Travis's way. And I just really wanted to express thanks and gratefulness for Travis and the Office of Special Events. And that is all.
Thank you. We're going to have questions, and I'm going to have some questions too. First, I just want to run through the committee. Alderman Narayan?
No questions. Thank you.
Alder Lady Clark Hubbard?
No questions. Thank you, but thank you for sharing it. To both of you, I know what it means to be able to publicly tell someone thank you. So I'm glad you all are getting this opportunity and this space to do that. You deserve it.
Alderwoman Sunier? Alderwoman Boyd? Oop.
I have no questions. Thank you so much.
I actually got a chance to attend a recent event that you all helped put together for Downtown Summer Vibes on Friday. So I am glad that despite the challenges, you've been able to figure out how to, navigate them and still get events done. I think moving in that direction of having more events in that area and invite more community members is always great. And just thank you for coming before us today. And I didn't say anything to Ms. Levin either, but Ms. Levin lives in the 7th and she does a lot of work with the Cherokee Kids. So I just wanted to thank her too for coming out and testifying in front of us.
Thank you, Alderwoman Sunier. I know you don't have, I'm grateful that you're expressing your gratitude for the Office of Special Events. Just curious if you could just, you alluded to, and it's been difficult, if you could just maybe walk us through some particular pain points that you've experienced in putting on, or any of the events that you've worked on, I think would be helpful.
This was already alluded to, but one particularly part of the process is the parks permit versus all the other permits. I definitely thought I was done after one of the first events I permitted when I got the parks permit. And I was like, yay. And Travis was like, no. So I think that's been one of the most confusing parts.
And just any other points that I know I don't want to say put you on the spot, but I mean, I think we're grateful to hear people's specific feedback too, so we can, I think go back and make adjustments. But is there anything else that was particularly confusing or frustrating, or like, hey, this is weird?
Mm-hmm. I think another thing is working with vendors, especially food and bev vendors, and figuring out the timeline for them to get their permits versus like the whole permitting process. Travis is really helpful with that, but of a lot of the times it's confusing on how long each permit is going to take. If there was more clarity around how long each permit takes to get, that would be helpful.
Well, I don't have any other questions. I just want to express for you being here, and certainly for all the events that Greater St. Louis has put on. I think it's really helpful feedback for us to figure out how to cut some of this red tape.
Thanks.
Thank you.
That is all our speakers.
Do we have anybody online?
No one's online.
Any written testimony?
No written testimony.
Look through my things. That's good. Travis, Mr. Hauser, not to put you on the spot, but anything that you'd like to follow up on, or any sort of, I don't want to say closing remarks, but anything else that you'd like to share before we wrap up today? Okay. Mr. Hauser, for all of you at home, said. Yes, we're going to make you come back.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, you can always reach out to our office. We're in room 416 in City Hall. You can stop by in person. We're happy to sit down and talk as long as you need to. You can call us at 314-589-6640. You can email me directly, which is my last name. That's Hauser, and it's HOWSER. T as in Travis, so hauserT@stlewis-mo.gov.
Great. And since we have you back here, I think I'm going to speak for the committee. I think it'd be great once you get the online, I don't know if you're going to have a name for it, but the portal, whatever we're calling it online. I think it'd be great for you to have a follow-up presentation, and this committee will be running through next April before we move on. So I think it'd be really great and helpful to have that back, and maybe even, I know you get a lot of feedback, but a little more feedback, but also to give people a chance to kind of see what you're doing in real time. And certainly if there's any things that you need to adjust on, I think the public would really like to see that.
Sure. Yeah, I'm happy to do that.
Great. Well, thank you again for being here.
You're welcome.
All right, announcements. Any announcements?
Since we're talking about special events and everything today, week is Juneteenth, celebration of Juneteenth. So there are a lot of special events already planned, properly planned and for that are going to be going on in our neighborhoods this weekend. So take the time. We love celebrating things here in St. Louis and highlighting what's good about St. Louis. So I think these events play an important role in that. So I know there's Juneteenth events, for instance, in the 10th Ward on Delmar, and of course the most historical one probably down in the 11th Ward, and then one in Fountain Park again in the 10th Ward. So again, while we're talking about special events, I think we could just take the time to promote some of those as well and make sure that we continue our support for the office and whatever Mr. Hauser will need for us to move forward.
Thank you, Older Lady. Well, I have one announcement. We're back, same bat time, same bat place. Next Monday here, we'll actually be hearing a bill. Alderman Aldrich is going to be presenting Board Bill 14, which is about food trucks specifically. So I would encourage you to look through the bill. If you have public testimony, I know that some of you have given public testimony about these things already, but specifically about that bill, I would encourage you to come. You can either come here physically or online, but I think that, we're looking forward to trying to make some changes and streamlining food trucks, at least one of many. And so with that, it looks like, Madam Clerk, we were all here at some point today, so no one to excuse?
No one's excused. Everyone was here.
Perfect. With that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Do I got a second from the online folks? I'll second that.
Again.
All right, well,
Second.
that's it. Thank you all.